All right, let's get started. Welcome to Blobby's Pit, where we plumb the depths. This is an episode about narrative in sports, which could mean a lot of things. I guess we'll sort of figure out what it means as we go. I'm Blobby. You may know me. And this is my dad. Like I said a few moments ago, he sometimes exists in chat as Puh66. Do you want to explain the origin of that name?
Is my oldest grandson gave me that when he started. The kids sort of dictate what you're called. Grandpap, pap, granddad, whatever. And Aiden came up with Puh, Puh, and so I use it often. I'm proud because it's different, it's unique. And 66. That's the number of the greatest athlete that ever lived.
Satan?
Oh.
Wait.
It's pronounced Miroslav Satan.
Okay. Lemieux, right?
Mary Lemieux.
Okay, all right, good. Good. Well, this is about sports, so that's relevant. I actually didn't know that part.
Really?
Yeah. I thought maybe it was when you graduated high school or something.
Oh,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
When I was 2. We have so much in common too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's coming. You can see.
Don't fight it.
Well, you back in the day, you had a perm, right?
Yes. Back in the day. Back in the 80s.
I'll try not to reveal all of your secrets.
Well, they're coming left and right. Yeah, that's when, curly hair was a thing back in the 80s. You've seen the big hair. I know you and many others weren't around, but
I thought it looked good. I've seen a picture of it.
yeah, it was all right. It worked for the time.
Yeah, long hair has come back around though. I think in like the 90s and early 2000s, it wasn't really so much of a thing. Long hair for men, I mean.
Yeah, 70s was big. The hippie 60s, 70s. Most of the rock bands, even country bands back in the 70s, those guys all had long hair, but that went away and it's come back. And you were styling and profiling.
Well, we could probably talk about hair a lot, but this is a show about sports and narrative, so let's kick off with an intro. I've already sort of introduced us, but if you want to share whatever you feel like about yourself, and also like a kind of a gloss of what your relationship with sports is.
Oh, big fan. Always been a big fan. Yeah. Thanks, CGA Rebs. Always been a big fan of sports. Growing up, wanted to play sports. Wasn't very good. My older brother was a very good athlete. Younger brother was a better athlete than I was. So it became apparent early on I wasn't going to go into any professional, become a pro athlete of any sort. So I started to, and I tell this story. It's sort of a cute story. Now what does he know? Come on, man.
Well, he's listening.
I'll be a little louder.
Yeah, your radio voice.
Yeah, I'm used to indoor voice. So my older brother, he's 2 years older, and his friends who were either his age or older, we had this field. It used to be a hospital. It was torn down, and it was just a barren field that we turned into a wiffle ball field. And there was this big tree right in the middle that prevented, balls flying all over the neighborhood. It was funny because you'd hit the ball. If you hit one up in the tree, it became like Plinko, trying to figure out where the ball was going to come out of the tree.
But still legal if you caught it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I would always go up there with the hopes of being allowed to play, and every day, those hopes were crushed. But So I started, I'd just sit around and watch. But then I climbed up in the tree the one day and I started to broadcast the game. And they got a kick out of it and I enjoyed it. And that sort of became my thing. Um, some of my harshest critics were early on because if I said something critical or bad about one of the plays or players, instead of, getting a verbal tongue lashing from that person, I would get rocks thrown at me. So it was a
you
very dangerous profession.
you would have a different kind of lashing.
That's right. But I just remember early on that becoming sort of a passion, the broadcasting, sports broadcasting, and I went to college, journalism communications, and when I graduated, I got a job at a radio station, a small country radio station, and they did high school sports. I was never really into high school sports up until that point, but I was in, I became, I took charge of what they did and tried to enhance it and make it better, and we grew, and it eventually, years later, led into us starting a high school sports broadcasting network in southwestern Pennsylvania. And 22 years later, I'm still doing it, still doing broadcasts and online streams and podcasts and writing articles and everything.
Yeah, and it's been like a bumpy road, and it's gone through a lot of different iterations.
Yes.
But you have stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I like that story a lot because I'm often when we're talking about like art and stuff in chat, I get a lot of folks who are frustrated that they're like, I want to be an artist, but I don't know how to start. And the advice I tend to give is just like pay attention to yourself and what you're interested in, and these things that just sort of happen to us almost accidentally are often things that that unlock a path if we're open to it. And you described a limitation on your life that then became this lifelong opportunity.
Yeah, and that's well said because if I believe if you're going to be good at something, it's got to be a passion, and the passion comes, the fire comes from doing something that you know that you really enjoy, or you have some talent and that you're good at, and your work is turning into productive things, whatever it be, painting a picture or in this case broadcasting a game or writing a story, whatever it is. So you got to sort of be true to yourself too. Know what you're good at, what and what you enjoy doing, and try to go from there. Again, sometimes it's fitting a square peg into a round hole. You may feel that way at times, and that's the frustration I think you talked about. But you just keep at it. Maybe make some tweaks here or there, and if I believe if you're talented at anything, eventually it's going to pay.
I think a lot of that frustration comes with the this like fantasy projection of what I should be doing, because a lot of people start from this point of like, I want to be an artist, that means I should be writing a good play right now, or whatever. But to me, it's you generate a lot more from like following your passions rather than trying to make yourself passionate about
Yes,
something. You know.
I definitely agree because in every walk of life, you're going to have days where you get kicked in the gut, and to bounce back, or you're going to have setbacks, and to bounce back, that fire's got to be somewhere. And I think if, like what you just said, if it's something that you don't have that passion, you don't have that fire in your belly for, it's so much harder to come back from the setbacks, to come back from the kicks in the gut.
Yeah, I think that most of the things that I've done in my adult life have like come out of happy accidents, I guess. I never intended to get into theater growing up. I never intended to get into Twitch, but you know, the circumstances aligned that allowed me to get to this place of like having modest success and being able to hang out with y'all. But like I happened to obsessively play this one particular game for years and got good enough that people might want to watch me, and the pandemic happened, and I have all this theater training that helps me, and I managed to get the tech, and it's just a lot of stuff that
And you're a good communicator.
yeah, I guess I good at that.
I guess I okay.
Yeah, as we continue to get into it, chat, if you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to mention them, and we'll shout out certain relevant ones as we go.
Is this the part where you say, and please open your wallet and contribute to what we are doing here on a daily basis?
Hey, Chad, give me some money.
Video Blobby. Video Blobby Inc.
It's lurking and enjoying the convo. Heck yeah, this is Isherwood. He's another person who streams the game that I stream, actually. We do co-op sometimes.
Nice.
Hi, Blobby and father of Blobby. But which is which? Yeah, so...
Hello.
Take a chill pill and enjoy yourselves. What do you see as the role of the sports broadcaster?
Oh, boy.
It's a pretty vague question.
And I think that may have changed. That has changed over the years. You know, back before it was just, you know, especially in the days of radio, audio broadcasts, it was you're the fans' eyes. Be as descriptive as possible when calling a game. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that as much with video because folks can see the action. You're just sort of you're still describing the play as the play-by-play guy, but it's become more of a depending on the genre of the broadcast. Is it a local broadcast? You're as much cheerleader. You're as much, you know, if you're working for the team, if you're an employee of the team, you're a shill. You're, you know, trying to sell tickets and that sort of thing. Whereas if you're national, you're, you know, pumping up your network. So it really the television and now with all the streaming, you know, things on your laptops, your phones, or whatever devices, it has changed what the job of the broadcaster is. Definitely over the decades.
We're all watching on our Kindles and Napsters and what were the really early ones called? The like planners. What were those called? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm allergic to planners.
The Palm Pilots. Remember those?
Palm Pilot?
Yeah, Palm Pilots.
I do not.
You need, like, your little schedule. So
that passed me by quickly.
Yeah, it was pretty brief. That's pretty interesting. I guess I hadn't thought about it changing over time, but that makes so much sense that you used to be the eyes for people's ears. That's kind of an act of translation. You're translating what you're saying into something people
Correct.
can take in. Whereas now it's maybe more about interpretation or insight.
Sure.
Like adding a layer. And that's sort of what I was really interested in with this topic is what is that act of creating a frame or interpreting? Like, I guess I sort of think about sports broadcasting or even Twitch broadcasting as pinpointing what narratives there are in the game and allowing them to like rise to the top, or sometimes finding them or sometimes even creating them for people to get invested.
Was that a question?
Uh, it was amusing. I mused, and I wondered if you had any thoughts about
You know,
like narrative aspects of broadcasting.
the one thing, and I have no idea if it's if I'm following in the direction that you're going, but the the whole the whole part of sports now on TV, it sort of reminds me of how game shows on TV have become. It's become more of your, like, the producers or directors or whatever are trying to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the sport is the story. You don't need all the human interest stuff that seems to be the niche thing nowadays. What is happening on that field, on that ice rink, that basketball court, whatever the sport is. That to me is the best reality TV there is, because it's not scripted. It's two teams or athletes, like we just finished up the Olympics, doing battle. And that's almost, again, how it is presented, I think, has changed a lot, and to me, not necessarily for the best, or in my opinion, the best direction. And I tied that in with game shows because, I was a big game show guy when I was growing up. Had all the game mornings were game shows. Price is Right.
Oh yeah,
Let's Make a Deal, Family Feud, all that stuff.
no whammy.
No whammy, that's right. Joker's Wild, that was an old one.
Card sharks.
Card Sharks, yeah, you were forced to play them by me when you were younger.
Oh, I love them.
And so again, that was reality TV. It was a person playing a game, trying to win prizes. Pretty simple match game.
But now it's like this person has 5 cancers. Can they win money?
It is it's almost unwatchable to me. I mean, I think there are a lot. They rebooted a lot of game shows, and they've created some new ones. And there was this one, I have no idea what it's called. Your mom watches, where they drop this ball and it goes down like Plinko, and you could win money, and then your significant other's in the back, and he has a contract, and he could tear it up, and you get. It's the Wall, I think it's called.
Okay.
But it's almost like I can't watch it because it's almost like every show's the same show. They have a sad story. My truck broke down. My kid has to go to college. My this, my that. Oh, we could do so much. Everybody could do so much with $500,000 or even $5,000. Come on. They've turned it into, and they drag it out incessantly. I know we're going way off topic.
No, this is great.
They drag it out where you could play 3 or 4 games in an hour. They play one game because they have to tell me more about yourself. Oh, well, my life is woe, and this, that, and the other thing, and it's just, to me, it's become, and they're all the same. I love that game. I'm ranting here. I apologize. I love that game with Howie Mandel. What was that called? The Briefcases?
Yeah, Deal or No Deal.
Deal or No Deal. They turned a game that they could have played 3 times an hour. I love the concept, but they would have drag it out, and that we have to ask, how do you feel about this? And let's check in with your loved ones who are seated over here. And, how do you feel? What should they do? And it just it ruined it. It's become more, everything's human interest. Everything's we need to know about. No, it's a contestant. We don't need to know about the contestant. Is he going to win or lose? That's all I'm worried about.
There's a I know you think you're going off track, but that's exactly what this show's for. There's a term called poverty porn that I think that applies to this idea that a lot of television shows or movies are kind of trotting out people in pain, people who are poor, and using their pain, kind of exploiting it to get views, right? Because everyone can relate to that. And It sounds like that's kind of what you're describing these shows have become, is like poverty porn, like somebody in a tight spot, somebody who's in trouble, everyone like gets to kind of
I mean,
fixate
everybody
on
has
that.
this massive sad story, and that's reality. That's life. I mean, if you, I'm a happy-go-lucky type guy, and I try to be as positive as possible. But I mean, if you broke me down, I guess I could, tell some sad sap story too, somewhere
I wanted to
in the
play
files of my
sports,
life.
but I wasn't good enough, so I had to climb the tree and get rocks thrown at me.
That is a sad story.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
I've
But
overcome somehow.
but it would be nice if the people on these shows could laugh about their stories, but they can't because it's this poverty porn. They have to be so sad about it. But I there's a really excellent movie that's about this. It's called Quiz Show. Came out, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. It is actually directed by Robert Redford.
That wasn't the Richard Dawson one, was it?
No,
Remember he was like an evil game show host or something. What was that?
no, that was The Running Man, I think.
Okay, I think you're right. I think
Yeah,
you're right.
he was good in that. I like that. No, not Slumdog Millionaire. Also about a quiz show though. This movie called Quiz Show. It's about a quiz competition, and some like brainy people enter it and learn that there's like producer backdoor dealings about who's supposed to win each episode and that sort of thing, even though it's supposed to be legit.
Yeah.
And really, really good movie. But I think I was not expecting that response, but I think it's actually really insightful because you're talking about this thing that's imposed rather than what is on the field, and you're invested in what is happening on the field because that's the best drama for you. And I think that I see that as a difference between artificial and organic narratives. The artificial narratives are like, this is going to play well, let's put this on whatever's happening. This is going to be a comeback for this player or whatever. And then the organic narratives are still about the people, but they're just about what arises naturally in the moment, what you see, what gets you excited about, what you can never predict about how the game unfolds.
Right.
And you kind of pointing at that distinction, I think that's like really one of the main distinctions between like good broadcasters, mediocre broadcasters, or like good artists, mediocre artists, is if they're trying to impose something or if they're really just sensitive to what's happening and good at helping other people understand it.
And again, I'm not going to bat for my fellow broadcasters, but a lot of them, they are following a path that they are told to follow. They all have their director, their earpiece in, and the director feeding them, not necessarily feeding them lines, but this is what we're going to talk about next. This is what we're going to do next. Here's the stat that's coming up. Blah 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 blah. Hey, throw it down to the person on the sidelines because they're going to tell this, sob story or whatever the case may be. Again, a lot of it is sort of out of the broadcaster's hands, and that's something again that goes back to the how that job has changed over the years. Again, now it's for whatever reason we're in this situation where whether again, no matter what genre we're talking about, the TV directors or producers want to be telling stories. Everything's got to be telling a story, and I don't know.
I think what you dislike and what you like are both telling stories, just different methods of it. Like it's like putting a fake story on versus finding the story
that's what
like
I mean by
there.
telling a story. I'm not telling a story and describing a story are, I think, two different things.
Yeah, okay. That's good. There's an interesting comment from ISO Lucine here. Having multiple he's just saying home and away kind of changes the focus on different parts of the narrative. focus on the players that are important for each team. I hadn't thought about that either, but if you're a home broadcasting unit, I think that you would probably have a lot more of a personal connection and be drawing those things out as opposed to, yeah, that's interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, so CJ's question here, I want to come back to. I think
I like um oh the 131. How would you say it? How is that? ISO.
isoleucine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting there pointing all
No, it's
rudely. um, Isoleucine 131. Those game shows could be 10 minutes long if they did. Yeah, that's exactly right. And if it's a 30-minute show, you get 3 games in. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I want to see. But again, I know I'm not of the same demo that a lot of these shows are geared towards. So, um, I'm okay with that.
um.
Hey, you're a good typer.
Thank you. That gives me a shiver. Gives me a shiver says they try to be unbiased, but home always gets preference in the commentating. Yeah, how do you think about bias, I guess, when broadcasting? Because I'm sure you have like favorites that you try to keep close to the chest.
Well, I believe the best broadcasts are the unbiased broadcasts. The biased ones, and again, I think there are, for those who don't know, a network broadcast. CBS comes in; they have their own guy, their play-by-play guy, their color analyst come to do a football game, and that broadcast is to the entire country or parts of the country, including the 2 cities of the teams involved. That's a national broadcast, so those broadcasters don't have any rooting interest, don't care who wins. It's an unbiased broadcast. Whereas, take for example my beloved Steelers. If you're doing Steeler radio games, it's almost a mandate that you are biased. That you're excited as heck for when the Steelers do something well, and you sort of, when the other team, you acknowledge the other team does something well, but you're not as excited. The local broadcasts are almost are really meant and expected to be biased. Again, those folks are more glorified cheerleaders because they work for the team, and so it's rah rah team, and that's fine. It is what it is. That's the way it's supposed to be. The national broadcast, which I prefer. To be honest, I think that's a more genuine broadcast because, again, those folks don't have any rooting interest. Although there's a lot of fans that think that that's a bunch of hooey. But our network, our high school sports network that I've been doing, follows that network path. In other words, we go out and do this high school versus this high school. We don't care who wins. We're just there to describe the action. So there is no rooting interest, and thus to me, it's more of a genuine broadcast.
Yeah, I think that like if you're broadcasting about professionals, someone does something dumb, you can lay into them, right? But if you're broadcasting high school sports, these aren't professionals. These are like kids who are doing it maybe because they want to do it for a living, maybe
Right.
because it's just a hobby.
Right.
So you don't want to be like, whoa, a boneheaded play by number 32 in the outfield, or and that would also probably tank your views, right?
Well, I mean, again, being that we're doing high school kids who most of them aren't going to go pro, most of them aren't even going to play in college. They're just there for the fun. We try to not be critical at all, but on a professional level, those athletes are paid and paid handsomely, so they are a little more open to criticism when they do, bonehead things or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, like your kid brings home a drawing from art class in high school, and you're like, oh, that's great. It's different than if someone's trying to become a visual artist and they're like, give me some feedback on this. You say that Blobby, but sports fans will get passionate despite the age of participants. Oh, I believe that. Definitely very
Oh,
passionate. Definitely very passionate
oh
fans.
yeah.
I was thinking, like, if you're one of those local hype commentators, it's probably pretty easy if you're doing it for a team like the Steelers. But I can't imagine how difficult it would be to consistently do that job if you're like the Browns hype person.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, that is quite the challenge when your particular team that you follow or broadcast for is not good
Yeah,
at
you're
all. It's
right.
bad. I mean, then you almost are rolling the dice on integrity. You're trying to rah rah rah. Hey, maybe not this year, but maybe next year.
See
When
promise.
yeah, when everybody knows that it's probably going to be the same next year too. So that is a very difficult job when you're following a team that's not very good at all.
I'm gonna hop to CJ's question because I think it's relevant for what we've been talking about. Who is your personal favorite all-time sports broadcaster? It can be any sport, any level. I feel like this is related because the all-time great broadcasters are kind of masters at spinning compelling narratives,
Oh yeah.
right?
I'm a big, and trust me, I did fine in school, and my job is to be a bit of a wordsmith, but I appreciate those folks who are good at what they do and can describe the action in various ways, even the same play. You know, this you could have the same play happen over and over and over again, and they'll describe it three or four different ways, which to me is extremely that's a talent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so some of my favorites growing up. There's a gentleman who just retired. He's like in his 90s, I think.
Oh.
Vin Scully.
Oh wow, yeah.
He did the Dodgers for like 6 decades or something.
He was
But
on
he
X Files, right?
no, not that
No,
Scully.
no.
No, you're no, just no,
Oh, all right.
just miss. It might have been a relation.
Okay.
But he did a lot of network stuff. He was very good. Um, Mike Emmerich, hockey announcer. He fits that bill perfectly. Even the most mundane hockey plays, he would describe it as um, so eloquently, um, which spices up the broadcast. I mean, not every game is a Picasso. Not every game is a work of art. So if you can take sort of a snoozer game and dress it up to a very listenable or watchable product over 2 or 3 hours, I think that's tremendous. Um, we got a Tony Romo fan here. I'm a big fan of. I think Tony has really improved since he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, by the way, but he has really improved um, each and every year. He's only done, I think, working the NFL on CBS for 4 years, but he's very good at what he does. But his partner Jim Nance, I'm a big fan of too. Jim Nance does the football on CBS. He does college basketball on CBS. He does golf. He's very good as well at being very descriptive. Um, those are some of the guys that popped to mind. We've had some local legends. I'll say this one gentleman. His name's Lanny Terry. That doesn't mean anything if you're not from Pittsburgh. But he did Pirates games for 30 years. I grew up listening to him. Well, I had a chance. I met him after he had left the Pirates, and was talking to him. He was teaching at a local college, Waynesburg. It's now Waynesburg University. And I was able to convince him to come do some high school games for us. And he has been doing that for 10 years. And he was an idol of mine, and yet he is so thankful to me, um, that I've given him a second career, so to speak, after his baseball career. So that's been a unique relationship. And CJ Reb says Mike Lang. Mike Lang, again, another guy I grew up on. He started in the mid '70s. I was a kid doing Pittsburgh Penguin games, and he was good. His catchphrase became his identity, but to me that's sort of sad because I think he was a lot more than just a bunch of catchphrases. I think he was tremendous at what he did in describing hockey, which by far is the hardest sport to do.
That encounter with Lanny Fratteri that ended up being a partnership. I think that's very cool. It's always eye-opening and really flattering, I guess, when you can end up with a relationship like that with like one of your idols or somebody who you used to watch do the thing, and then you start to do the thing, and then you like come into contact with them. Like that's I feel like there's an experience of realizing like, oh, now that I am occupying this position, what seemed so other and distant to me, like how are they so amazing? Like I'm kind of there, and I'm that to other people now, and you just get the feeling of like life cycles and stuff. Yeah, it happens on Twitch sometimes too, where somebody who maybe like helped you get started early on and opened their viewership to you on a couple of occasions, you get more into the game, and then suddenly you're like, oh, now I'm doing the thing I used to watch people do. It's a bit surreal.
Is it Cheo Slice?
Chaos.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Slice. No.
Chaos Slice, I guess. He changed it recently from Chaos Ice, so I guess maybe he he needs to comb his hair and get the critters out.
He asked, was about to ask what were the chances your dad would be unbiased in a Steeler game.
Mm-hmm.
Guess he just answered that. If I'll tell you another interesting story. One of my toughest things as a high school broadcaster, and CJ Rebs would appreciate this, is my youngest son.
Uh-huh.
Can we identify him as
CJ
Rebs 81?
Yeah, CJ's my brother.
He's my youngest son. Was a tremendous baseball player, high school baseball player. So I was broadcasting one of his games. It just happened that they were playing a big game for first place, and I was, broadcasting, and they were winning. And again, I'm neutral, right? I'm supposed to be Switzerland. Nobody knows. I never identified him as being my youngest son. I mentioned his name, but never said, "Oh yeah, that's my boy out there." Oh yeah. So they're winning. His team's winning. He's pitching. He's doing a great job. I think it was like 2-1, 3-1. Late in the game, they play 7 innings in high school, so it was the 6th inning, and he gives up. It's 2-1 because he gave up a hit, and then the next kid hits a 2-run homer to take the lead. And I had to, trust me, inside I was crushed for him, but I had to feign excitement for the kid who hit the home run because that was my job. So I was, I painted the picture that I wasn't going to let my personal emotions affect what was a great moment for that kid. He hits a 2-run homer that turned out to be the game-winning homer to help his team win. So it's not easy, but that I don't know if that helps answer his question or not.
Yeah, if you could be unbiased about or at least perform unbiasedness about your kid, you could probably be it about your team.
I think so.
And that ties in with what you said earlier about being the eyes of the audience, because you want to share what you're excited about, but at the same time, CJ's not the audience's kid.
No, I
So
mean, everybody listening. He's not listening. He's pitching. Everybody listening that was a fan of that other team, they're excited, and they want to hear that excitement from the paid professional broadcasters too. So um, that was a proud moment that I have because I was able to do my job. It was a proud moment from a professional standpoint. I felt felt bad.
yeah. Well, I think that's like a tremendous testament, as Chaos says, a testament to you to think back on that as a proud moment because the sports is a huge breeding ground for what is toxic about masculinity so often, and to be able to be proud of a moment when your son messed up, I think is great because all the worst sports parents, sports dads, that we see tend to be putting these expectations of perfection on, and like you did a bad job today, therefore I'm disappointed. But
Yeah.
we don't have control over our body. That's what makes sports interesting. We can't just decide to do a good job, right?
You may, I mean, in that instance, he may have thrown a perfect pitch, but the other player, the batter, did a better job. That pitch, maybe it was a mistake, but maybe that was his best pitch. How can you get on him for that? How can you browbeat him for that? Whether you're a coach or whether you're a parent. And I think that yeah, youth sports. Somebody touched on it earlier. That I don't know if it was Chaos Slice or not, but people are passionate, but that passion sometimes is really misguided. Like when I go to a high school event, a game, I'm blessed to have headsets on, so I don't hear some of the inane comments made by parents, fans in the stands that are usually negative toward the opposing team, negative toward the coach of your team, negative toward officials. I mean, it's it can youth sports can be very toxic, and that to me, somebody who's made a living watching high school sports, youth sports, it's it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, like remember that part where it's called a game and we're
Yeah.
supposed to be having fun? That is the so it came up one topic that came up recently on stream is there's a very frequent talking point in the generation war, which I don't believe in generations really. I think that's kind of made up to divide us, but like
Well, we hate you, you hate us, but that's
exactly.
neither here nor there.
The boomers versus the millennials. One of the most common talking points, you've heard like snowflake before. We get called snowflakes. The other one is that we are the participation trophy generation. You want accolades for anything you do, no matter how good or bad it is, right? But that one really kills me because when we were doing youth sports, we never asked for those participation trophies. I've never heard any kid get upset that they didn't get a participation trophy. It was the parents who were now the boomers who were demanding that their kid be recognized for these things. And so that always struck me as a funny thing to wield against us.
That's well said because I think I'm on the very, I mean literally like the last year of the baby boomers. But I think that it's just so funny because you will hear I'll be talking to friends of mine about their grandkids now in some instances, and it's the whole doom and gloom, and it's just so funny because I'm sure my grandparents thought when we were young it was gonna, doom and gloom. I'm sure our parents, when we were listening to that Satan's rock and roll, it was, it was going to be, oh, this young, when these kids, this, that, and the other thing, when they get older, this world's going to hell.
Just look at what that Elvis fellow's doing with his hips.
Well, that was a little before me, but that's, yeah,
Oh,
that's
right. Well,
that's
that's the legacy that continued.
no, but it's so, I mean, when I hear friends of mine saying that, I sort of get a chuckle, because it's just, I mean, that's the what you were talking about, the generational thing.
That's you know what that is. That's one of those artificial narratives that gets imposed on us rather than a more organic one that's like about what's happening. I think.
Yep.
The Satan's rock and roll. Yeah, I've bonded with Chaos about our love of Led Zeppelin recently.
That one better. This one's a good question.
Yeah,
too.
I was actually just about to go to that one. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, this is isoleucine 131, and the folks that have hung in here, I thank them. They've asked some pretty good questions.
Yeah, they're not bad.
Do you need to have played sports to be a good announcer? I like to think I'm a good announcer. I didn't play sports, and a lot of those guys I mentioned that were people that I looked up to, either when I was growing up or even now, did not play sports. I think most of the color analysts, the color commentators, are former athletes, and Tony Romo is a good example of one that has really made the transition from the playing field to the broadcast booth smoothly. Not all of them do, but most of the play-by-play jobs, most are usually non-athletes, and probably most who never played the game at a high level. Maybe they played high school ball. Maybe a few of them were fortunate enough to play some college ball, but I would probably say most of them did not play any sports at a high level.
There's a similar question that comes up in theater and film, which is, to be a good director, do you have to have acting experience? I think it's a pretty interesting question. And the reason it's about those two specific things is like, it's hard to work with an actor on their performance if you don't understand the craft of acting. If you're just like, could you try it again but sadder? That doesn't really help the actor at all. But if you understand the process that they're going through, you can like work with them on the nitty gritty of that. I think it's a little different because that's a collaborative relationship where there isn't that, you're not like collaborating with the players. But I tend to think of it like, if you happen to have experience in acting or designing or whatever, it certainly helps you as a director to bring those things together. But it's not at all necessary, because what you really need is an understanding of the craft, which you don't have to have done to have. Right. And I think that you're describing, in your own career arc, you haven't enacted as a player, but you've talked with so many players and watched so many games and seen so many practices that you have this sort of deep tissue understanding of the craft. That's what you need.
And you talk to, I'm much better what I do. I'm much more educated about what I'm doing now, thanks to the relationships I've built with various coaches over the years who, you talk to them and get inside their head of some of the inside information about that particular sport that you may not have known. You're a fan, but all fans are limited in their knowledge of specific sports. So I always, a believer, you try to keep on learning, and ask a lot of questions, and do a lot of listening.
This is a pretty good one, and then I'll sort of move towards wrapping us up. What's the biggest probably should not have said that moment. It's a question from 4mana77 here. And please feel free to say anything on my channel.
Wow. You know, I'm proud of the fact that I have, and this doesn't answer the question, but I'll start off by saying I have not let anything slip on the air in 32 years now. I've been doing this.
No, you haven't gone Yosemite Sam.
No. That's good. You know, I wrote. This is somewhat fresh. It wasn't something I said during the broadcast. It was something I wrote in an article recently. Remember we talked about it. I don't know if it's even worth bringing up here. The bell of the ball.
Oh, you were asking about that phrase, or
Yeah. I wrote. There was a high school girls basketball team that was tremendous. They won the district championship. They won the state championship. And in the state championship, there were a lot of good teams in that tournament. And I wrote that the school was North Allegheny. And I wrote that North Allegheny was the belle of the ball. That, you know, in this tournament that had all these teams that were very good, they were the standout team. Belle of the ball, it's an old-fashioned phrase that I thought, okay, all these beautiful women at this ball, the belle is the one that stands out, or is, as the prettiest or whatever. I caught heck for that. I was criticized for being sexist on that one. So,
well,
that surely was not the intent. But I mean, I've been, knock on wood, I've been fortunate that I can't think of anything that I've regretted a whole lot after a broadcast or anything. So, from that standpoint, I'm very fortunate.
He defeats your question.
Yeah, who's the one that just dropped in to hear your dad say my username?
You don't have to say it.
What, this right here?
Yeah, you don't have to reward him for that comment.
Come on.
You can if you want to.
Dark Guru.
There you go.
8767.
You see where I get my voice from, Chad.
I can do the movie trailers or whatever. In a world filled with Dark Guru. 767.
Oh, what a nightmare. Do you have a catchphrase?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I do not. What's the
You talking to me?
I'm one of the few. Most guys do try to come up with something.
Chat, do I have a catchphrase? I don't think so.
You had a call when you were playing automatic baseball.
I
Home run.
Oh yeah, huh?
What was it?
It is high. It is deep. It is gone. Stratomatic baseball role-playing game, if anyone doesn't know it. Well, that's sort of my litany that I do to followers. Everyone kind of has to have one of those in the stream. Because you get so many followers the longer you do this that you can't come up with a new thing to say every time you go insane.
Here's a question.
Yeah, this did you have a coach or a player that you cast that you were sad you wouldn't be casting anymore because they were that good or entertaining, I guess?
Um, I mean, you form relationships with a lot of those coaches that when they, I'm doing this long enough now. You are seeing more and more of the guys that were in their prime when I started are stepping down and retiring or I can't say there's one particular, but each one that you have formed a relationship with that steps down, it's different because you never know if that the replacement or any of these new younger guys you'll have that same rapport with.
Yeah. Um.
I had a relationship with a coach when I was a player when I was young. In fact, I called him Dad. Um, I was probably the only kid. And again, this goes back to my failure as an athlete. My dad coached my team. He coached my older brother, coached me, and I was probably the only kid who was benched and never saw the light of day with his dad. Most guys coach their kids so that their kids will, get the best position, get the best spot in the batting order or whatever. And nah, not so much.
Well, I guess you learned some integrity from that.
That's right. That is correct.
I have some fond memories of being benched. I generally preferred it to being on the field.
You were hoping you'd give a little fist pump when he said, Ryan, when you said video Blobby, you're out. You go, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna sit back and relax and watch the show. Yeah, meritocracy, that's not a way for anyone to learn. You gotta play to learn, and to play you can't just stick someone in a position. And yeah. Oh, Frank is here. Frank is on vacation right now, but is joining us. My coach Pettigrew Pettigrew would start his son as pitcher and put me in once the bases were loaded.
Well, that's funny. And that's true, right?
Yeah. Cool. I'm gonna kind of turn the corner, and I quit after that year, yeah, and move towards wrapping things up.
Yeah.
You came into stream the other day, and I was talking about all like how I've learned as I've gotten older, more ways in which I'm like my mom. But truth is, I'm always also learning more ways in which I'm like you. And I think that's kind of a universal experience. You put a few more years on, and you're like, oh, I'm like standing in this way, or I'm like engaging in this hobby or whatever. And that's very much like what my parents used to do. And those are always interesting moments. But I've had like a series of revelations over the years, whether I was doing theater work or Twitch work or whatever it is, of like, I grew up in a sports family and was not nearly as interested as sports, so I kind of grew up thinking like of myself as separate from sports. But so much of what I do in any of these lines of work is about well, I'm literally broadcasting. I'm other people's eyes. I'm presenting things fresh for people, finding narratives where there aren't any, bringing them together. Sure. And that seems to me to be exactly what you've been doing for your entire career as a broadcaster.
Well, I'm impressed with the fact that having done this, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks for coming on it.
This is definitely a multitasking thing, and you're good at all the tasks that you're multiing on. Especially when chat gets chatty, and the stuff comes in to be able to reply and answer questions or whatever while you're saving the world from destruction in the games you play.
More like trying to murk one other person in the game that I play. But yeah, chat is in a massive burden, always.
Oh,
no. I would be so bored if it weren't for you, chat. But yeah, there are days I offer. Actually, we can look at them. I offer channel points rewards. People get channel points on Twitch just for watching a stream.
Nice.
And so I have these rewards where people can pay 1,000 to make me rant about anything that they choose. I can improvise a limerick for 1,500. They make me play without my glasses for 2,000.
Does it have to be a naughty limerick?
It doesn't have to be, although they tend to be.
Yes, they do.
Limerick after all. But these big ones here, these 10,000 points of rewards, improvised song about the person who requested it, and 10,000 for an MS Paint picture. When people redeem these, sometimes on a busy day, I'm trying to do really well in the game that I'm playing. I'm trying to respond to as much of chat as possible.
Right.
Y'all talk about very interesting things. And meanwhile, whenever I catch a moment or two, I'm trying to add brush strokes to my Microsoft Paint picture in the corner, and it can get pretty frenetic. So definitely a lot going on. As I'm sure that ASMR voice, well, we're in the middle of a podcast, faceless, so I will deny your request, but I appreciate the... Oh, you want to do an ASMR voice? Do you know what that is?
I do not.
It's like soothing whispers and like texture sounds, and these ASMR people get really close to the mic and they gotta talk like this.
Oh.
Like you're talking to your 3-year-old granddaughter, trying to calm her down as she throws a hissy fit, throwing every blanket, every pillow, and every one of her buddies out of her crib, and demanding that you get up from a deep sleep and get her some water and maybe even a snack. You mean that kind of whisper?
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be here all weekend.
That's as you can tell, he just spent some time with his granddaughter.
That was easy.
So I guess my, with all that in mind, I guess my kind of parting thought and question is, what is it that really appeals to us humans about sports, and how do broadcasters access that? You've already talked indirectly about this in a lot of ways, but as a kind of a wrap up, what do we love about sports? How do you help us love it?
Well, I think that the sports itself is the main dish. It's the main course. If you have an vested interest of any sort in any particular game at any particular age level, whether it be a niece, nephew, brother, a favorite college, a favorite high school, a favorite pro team, you have an interest, or maybe you just love the sport and you have no interest. You turn on a game and it's two teams that you really don't care about, but you're interested, or it's just because you have $20 on Team B.
Yeah.
Let's get real.
Sweeten the stakes a little bit.
Right. That's the main course, and you're sort of as a broadcaster hoping to make the customer or consumer enjoy that main course a little more. You're almost the dessert. You're almost the pastry that will conclude. Your job is to help them enjoy that meal, and then when all is said and done, they're very happy with the product that they viewed or that they've listened to, even if the outcome isn't what they had hoped.
Yeah, I guess there's not much more boring than watching a sport you don't understand, right? That's just a bunch of people running around, and I'm alienated from this. But as the dessert, or as the there's this term quilting point, the stitch that finishes the whole thing retroactively. You're this point of interpretation that lets people see, oh, it's more than just people running around.
Yeah.
It's people striving for something within this set of rules, and if you can appreciate both of those things, then you're in the door.
If I can be, remember Frank would say, if I can be that bread boule, then I have accomplished my job.
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for joining us, chat. We're gonna wrap up the pit. This is a good comment, though. To me, casters also have this effective feeling as if you've got a friend next to you.
Yeah. Almost like reading us again. I sort of everything's video now, but from the audio standpoint, it's almost like you're, reading a story or something like that to them. So that is a good comment.
Yeah, this idea of interpassivity as opposed to interactivity. Interactivity is like making kids run around and stuff. Interpassivity is enjoying an experience somebody else is having. It's why people watch me play a game, right? And it's why people enjoy watching other people experience the sport and listening to you experiencing the sport as well. They get to kind of live it out through you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, chat. And do you have...
Thanks for letting me sit in the big chair.
Yeah, right?
Huh?
I mean, you bought me the chair, so...
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I felt bad, but now I don't.
Is there anything you want to plug? Do you want to tell people how they can access what you do, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can plug our website. It's you'll be able to see my podcast right there front and center. Yes, one more quick question, but I will say that I work at the Trib Live High School Sports Network, and it's tribhssn.triblive.com.
Great.
We'll be starting in a couple weeks. The high school football season starts, so you'll be seeing a lot more of my written content. I've been sort of on hiatus the last couple weeks, so you won't see much about anything I've written lately. Oh no, I wrote a lot of things before my break that will be showing up there. So
Nice.
yeah, check it out if you have a boring moment or two.
Yeah, and that's Western Pennsylvania primarily, or exclusively.
Southwestern Pennsylvania.
Southwestern
Yeah,
Pennsylvania high
it
school
is.
sports. Okay, there's this final question. Whose eyesight is better?
Dude, it's got to be yours, right?
What can you see right here in this chat? Can you read that from here?
I cannot.
If I guess mine is better because if I really, really squint and kind of do this, I can just barely make it out.
Here, I'll tell you when the letters come into focus. This is riveting stuff, by the way.
About here for me.
Yeah, right here. So
Okay, so mine's just
Yours
like
is-
a
yeah.
little. Yeah.
yeah, you wait in about 20 years.
I'm waiting. I got nothing to do but wait. All right.
I appreciate it. Keep following this dude. He's the man.